Hey y'all, welcome to today's coffee chat. We are going to be talking about sometimes no is not redirection. You are currently on the right path. You just have to think deeper. You have to do more. You have to be more disciplined. And that means you are going to have to say goodbye to this version of yourself. Now, before we dig into the conversation for today, I want to do stop and say make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Also, if you want to do one-on-one coffee chats with me, I will leave my calendar below. If you need any college or career resources, make sure you follow me on LinkedIn and Substack and in my text newsletter where I send out free resources weekly. Now, let's get back to the conversation at hand of the no is not redirection. Sometimes and a lot of times the no is that you need to dig deeper. And if I'm going to speak transparently on this is the season of life in which I am in. And at first I thought it was going to be a very tough pill to swallow. But I have been operating out of this perspective and mindset of having a tender heart and shifting my mindset in how I approach things. Now, I know a lot of times when we hear this concept of like shift your mindset, it feels very like woo-woo. It feels very whimsical. It feels very like, that's not practical. But what I've been doing is interrogating it through the perspective of like critique. And I think a lot of times we have this repulsion to critique because we're used to critique being cruel. But I am approaching critique in the same way that I approach it through my scholarship and through my journey in academia, because if you know anything about education, if you know anything about academia, baby, you're going to get critiqued. You're going to get feedback. And so it's better to learn sooner rather than later than to internalize that and attach your academic progress to your personal identity. And I had a moment like that yesterday on where I got critique and where I have to do revisions for a very important paper. And this was not even one of the best paper that I have ever written in my entire life. And to get the critique, not that it wasn't good enough, but to dig deeper in the direction for me to develop into the intellectual and academic and expert that I need to be, that it's not good for that right now. And so going back to the drawing board and having to dissect and interrogate each paragraph by paragraph and create a brand new framework is not easy. And so I had to mourn the version of myself that wrote that paper because I was so excited. She was so excited. She was so proud. And I stand by this paper 110%, but I do understand I need to dig deeper. And so really utilizing this moment. I wasn't going to share this, but I think it's also important for us to talk about like our failures and our moments that we don't pass, not necessarily from like a hindsight is 2020, but how I am currently in this moment navigating it. And I think that just comes with our conversation of vulnerability, and to look at it from a lens of evolution rather than a lens of like, dang, I'm not good enough. Whatever the case may be, instead of using like that self-deprivation language, really, what does it take to evolve? And this is where I'm getting to where the rubber meets the road because my eyes were the only one on this paper. And I think a lot of times we navigate life through this lens of isolation and solitude. And so yes, it is our lived experiences, but we are not able to objectively see our blind spots. And so when you are navigating life solely through like this narrow lens, you are not able to see the blind spots. You are not able to see things from a different perspective or to really zoom out objectively without a lens of bias. And so I'm at this place where I need community. I need guidance. Oops. I don't know it all. And I'm okay with not knowing it all, but I have to ask for help. Like, there is no negotiation on that. And I want to encourage y'all to get comfortable with that vulnerability of asking for help. You need it because you don't know the biases that you hold on to, especially subconsciously. And I think a lot of times when we talk about the word bias or what that means or the context in which we navigate it through, we think about this from a career perspective, from a relationship perspective, from a racial perspective. But we don't really think about the biases that we hold. Because a lot of us have done the work. We did the meditations, we said the prayers, we go to the churches, we do the work, but we still don't understand those subconscious biases. And also understanding sometimes your good is not good enough. And that's where you need mentorship to help put you on the right path to get you from point A to point B. And I think when we say the phrase of your good is not good enough, we internalize that, because a lot of times we put our all into everything. Our blood, sweat, and tears the long night, and to get that no, to get that failure, to get the you need to completely redo this, you need to scrap this, it feels like a personal attack. And I'm not saying not to grieve, and I'm not saying not to be frustrated, and I'm not saying not to have those emotions. There's a healthy, emotional process that you need to go to and go through. But what I am saying is interrogate that from a perspective of, this is not an attack. And of course, this is where discernment comes in. But if you know you need to dig deeper, you know you need to be a little bit more disciplined, or a lot more disciplined, what does that look like? And how can you rebuild your relationship to your scholarship or to your professional work or to your creative work through this lens?